welcome back to Just Ask Mrs. Hurlbut. As you can see, this is not my bedroom. This is not my comfy chair. Instead, I'm at my sister's house because she's going to tell us her story today. This is my sister Marie. Welcome, Marie.
Hello, everybody.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm happy you're here too.
Yeah, I'm visiting her. So why is my sister here? Well, today we're going to talk about her adoption story. And why is this something that you should listen to? Well, her story happened while she was in college. And there were a lot of decisions that she had to make before, during, and after her adoption story. And it's a story that's actually quite beautiful. And I hope that it inspires you. And when I work with my students, Marie, we talk about adoption as an option for unplanned pregnancy. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to, maybe I'll just start with one question, and then just tell me your story.
Okay.
This is a story that I've heard 1,000 times. I lived part of it with you.
Yeah.
But it's so worth telling, and when I tell it to my students, they hang on every word. And now I actually have the person here. So let's go back, and students ask me all the time, you know, all the what ifs. What happens if I get pregnant? What are my options? And there are more options than you know of. So I really want to hear your story from the beginning, kind of place where you were, how old you were, where you were in your life. And
Okay, I will do my best
Go,
because there's a lot.
there's a lot.
So yes, in college, I was a junior in college, and I found myself pregnant. Did not plan that, of course. I was with my boyfriend at that time for about 2.5 years, and we were not safe. We were not doing the proper things that you should do. We were both very immature, but in my eyes, we were in love, and I became pregnant and was in denial. So a lot of denial. I didn't know how to even think about this happening to me. Never thought it would happen to me. I had no one really to turn to talk to about it. And the first thing I thought of, my parents are going to kill me. So I basically just hid it. I didn't face it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody. It took me a while to even tell my boyfriend, because as soon as I would say anything out loud, it made it real. So I literally put my head in the sand and pretended it was not there and it would go away. Of course, it's not going to go away. I look back on that and think how crazy that I did that. But I was scared, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed.
We might want to mention when this was, because obviously
correct.
Teenagers today,
It's a different,
or I should say young adults today,
Yes.
it's a very different world. It's much more accepting. In the late
Right.
or the mid 80s,
the mid 80s, and coming from a Catholic family, I was at a Catholic college, and it just, the relationship with my parents was great, but it wasn't like my mom was my best friend and I could go to her. I was scared to death to tell my parents because I was embarrassed that that their daughter's having sex, not married. Huge, and it's just something that back then you just did not talk about that stuff like you do now.
You were a junior in college, 20 years old, you were away, you were in a different state, so you were essentially alone.
Correct.
All right, so tell me about some of the decisions that you found yourself needing to make.
Of course, I waited so long to even talk about it or even approach my boyfriend, and to be honest, I don't really remember how much time went until I told him. But he right away kind of just took charge. Let's go to the doctors and let's just decide what we're going to do. You just need to be seen, see a doctor. When I went, I was probably 4 months pregnant, maybe 5.
I don't even know this part of the story.
I was
Didn't
too far along. They said right away, you're too far along to have an abortion. And in my head, I was really, really happy because I knew that that wasn't something I could handle. And I think God was telling me that. And maybe that's why I waited so long. Because if I had the time to think about it, I don't know what I would have done, because it would have been the easy way out.
And out of desperation, we do things that we might later regret.
Yes. And so part of me is really, really glad. I started crying because then I went, now I'm really having this baby. So it was very, very, very scary. And I just knew that I still had to tell my parents, and I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't tell them until I was 7 months pregnant.
She came home for our older sister's wedding. And we were in the wedding. And we had to fit into dresses in that wedding. And there was no denying it at that point. Even though I didn't know. I was so oblivious.
No denying it on my part anymore, because at this point now my mom and dad know. And because well, I ended up having to go to the doctors for something else, and I walked in, and the doctor, who basically he birthed me, he said, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" He could tell right away. So nobody else really could tell, even at the wedding, because we're not saying that I'm pregnant. So they're just thinking, wow, she gained a lot of weight in college. But I was able to really hide the baby. I found out later I have a very large torso, and I was able to, that baby sat way back. So I was lucky in the sense that I hid it for so long. So once I told my parents, I think I started to show more after that. And I went back to college, finished my mom got everything taken care of.
Can you just pause really quickly and share with us how helpful Catholic Charities was for you? Because we do talk about that in our class.
Absolutely. I don't know a whole lot because, again, my mom took over. I didn't call anybody. I didn't make any of this happen. My mom basically called Catholic Charities and they took over. They said, we'll get you, I wasn't going to go home. I finished my testings to get done with the school year pretty quickly and got into a host family through Catholic Charities. So my mom was like extremely happy about that. She didn't have to fly out. She didn't have to do anything. She has, kids at home, things in her life. I basically had to just do this on my own, but she got me to a lovely home nearby. My boyfriend took me there, set me up there, and I really was only there for 2 months because I waited so long, and generally they have women there for the 9 months they're pregnant. So they basically took over, and it didn't cost my parents a thing. So that was in itself a huge relief.
A godsend. Well, and you would find out later too that it also was very helpful.
And it was a closed adoption, of course, at the time.
But you chose the family.
My boyfriend and I literally chose the family from pieces of paper that they wrote down on, nothing in the computers. We didn't see pictures. We just said, and of course, I want this to be gone. I want this to be over. I had no connection to this baby whatsoever. Horrible to say, but I didn't feel a connection. I wanted this out of my life. So I basically just said, yes, these people look great. Let's do that. Boom. We just called it a day. And because there was so many people in that same position, who am I going to give it to? I just they went to Catholic, they go to church, they have no children, they can never have children. So it was kind of that, let's just do these people.
It was a good fit.
Good fit. So basically, I should just go right into, I had the baby.
And again, you had some decisions to make. I flew out and visited you for a couple of weeks towards the end.
Right.
Our brother came out and visited, but you were still essentially alone because nobody else came out.
And I remember you coming, and we just sat in bed and talked about it and cried. And I just kept saying, Cammie, I have no desire to keep this baby.
And I was bowling my head off with my hand on her belly, thinking, if this were me, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine making these kinds of decisions.
Right. But again, I didn't have any connection to it.
That's your own defense.
Right.
That's your own defense.
It totally was. I was like, this family's going to get this baby. It's all good. It's going to be great. And
but you really hadn't made a decision.
I hadn't. In my head, before I had the baby, I knew I was going to give it up. I just did. Fast forward to 2 months later, I'm giving birth to this baby, and we had
and your boyfriend is there.
Yes, he drove me. He was always there for me. And we didn't talk about marriage until after the baby. And he said, I don't want this to I don't want this to change my life. I have all these plans. So I knew he didn't want to get married. So that's when I just kind of went, well, just definitely going to give the baby up. And then they actually gave us the baby to hold, because they didn't know that from the shift before, they were told not to bring the baby to me because I'm giving this baby up, and nurses
Somebody
changed,
didn't get that message.
And they gave us the baby, which in hindsight, I'm glad I got to hold him. But guess what? Hormones are going in, and I'm going nuts and crying my eyes out saying, I can't possibly give this baby up for adoption. So it was tough. And I didn't think I'd cry.
And your boyfriend also has second thoughts.
No, not at this
Oh, I
point.
thought he did.
Nope, not at this point. He did it at a really bad point, but he said, "Yeah, no, we're giving." We never even we never said those words like, "Yes, we're giving this baby up." But in my heart, I knew I wanted to, but all of a sudden I've got this baby in my arms, and I'm thinking, how am I going to ever give this baby up?
Because denial's a lot easier when
Right.
you don't see the human being in your arms.
I was so like, fine with it. So basically, I left the baby in the hospital. I left to go, back to the host family, because it wasn't just like, you can't just decide right then. You have to go to court and say, yes, I relinquish all my rights to this child. So went back and everything, and I forget how much later court was, but we're called to court, and I went back and forth before this day, going, yes, I'm going to keep him. I'm going to keep him.
Well, meanwhile, we're at home.
Right. Not
expecting you, and we didn't know whether she was coming home empty-handed or with a child in her arms.
Right. So,
until we saw her.
Right. So I basically was like, I'm going to keep this baby. And part of me was really happy about that. Like, I really want this baby. And I don't know how many times went back and forth. I really don't remember. But then I'm like, not sleeping at night going, oh, wait. And so our mother said, we will support you whatever decision you make. If you want to keep this baby, we are there for you. We will not raise this baby. You will have to get a job. You will have to take care of this baby. We will help you. If you give it up for adoption, we will support that too. So of course, I wanted someone to tell me what to do. But I had to do it, and I think I just went, this is crazy. I don't want to be a single parent. I don't want to take care of this baby by myself, and this baby has no dad. And it just kind of went, I don't see this in my life. I really don't see this in my life. Had I done it, it probably would have worked out fine. But I was thinking kind of a little bit ahead and kind of going, I don't see this.
You were also a very immature 20, and now she turned 21 2 days after she gave birth.
Yes, 21 after he was born.
And you were very behind the curve, and it just had a lot.
Right. I still had
a lot of big decisions in your life.
I still had
to
another
make.
year of school. Not that I cared about school. That would have been a great excuse not to go back to school, because I didn't like school. But I just kind of wanted to do things right, and I thought this is more right than keeping this baby. In a selfish way, I want to keep the baby because he's mine. But in a selfish, I could do the other way around, where I give him up, but then
right.
Which that's selfish, because you're not taking care of what you
which is the more selfless act. And you chose the road that meant your heart was shattered, but it was probably the best road for your baby.
So we did have to go to court. I finally said, I came to terms with, I'm giving this baby up. Not without much a lot of tears. But I said, I'm going to do this. And I felt relieved, and I felt like I've made the best decision, and I'm done. I'm ready to go to court. So during court, when they call you up to relinquish your child and put your right hand up, do you swear? I did it, and they asked my boyfriend to step up, and he went catatonic. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just said, I need to talk to Marie. So we had to go outside of the court, and he said, maybe we can make this work. I went, what?
Timing is everything.
So that was really tough, and I was mad, and I was just like...
Because you're finally in a position where you're ready.
And he's still just trying to freaking work this out, just like, he wants to do the right thing too. So I don't really remember what was said, but we left. We couldn't go back into court because we had to think about it more and talk about it more. And I don't know how much time went by, I don't know how many days, I have no idea. But we went back, and he goes, okay, I think you're right. Let's give this baby up for adoption. And we went through the process of relinquishing, which didn't take long at all. That family, we learned, got the baby from, I think he was in foster care for, I want to say maybe a week to 3 weeks.
Before they got
him, because we had to stop the proceedings, and they couldn't give the baby until we actually relinquished. So
then you came home. And of course, there's a whole another story where we ended up leaving together to study abroad, and that also changed the trajectory of your entire life.
Right.
But I would love to first tell me the emotions that ran through your brain for the next 30 years, because after 30 years, everything changed. So during that time, you were so busy raising your family. She had gone on, gotten married, raised a family.
And I did, I would think about him on birthdays, of course, and things, but it really slowed down. The pain went away. I knew he was in a great place. I haven't heard from anybody. You can't hear. You have no idea if he's okay or not. You just praying that everything's right. And I would think if I had heard, if anything happened, I would probably hear. But I just went on with my life, raised 4 kids with my husband, who wasn't my boyfriend of the baby, but raised children and moved on. I was happy. I was in a good place. I went years without, weeks or whatever, years without thinking about him. And I felt a little guilty. And people
I thought about him all the time.
Yeah, and I felt bad, but I'm like, again, I might have just been like,
I think it's easier to push it back because when it surfaces, then the pain comes.
The pain comes, and I have no one to talk to about it.
Right. And she had also moved away. We didn't live near each other.
My children didn't know. We never
Nobody knew. That was really important.
Nobody knew except our immediate family.
I didn't even tell my husband for the first 5 years.
So literally nobody knew except our immediate family.
So then Catholic contacts our mom because my mother had been keeping in touch and sending letters to Catholic Charities, hoping that it would get into this young man's file.
She called them breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs.
So she moved and she called them and said, here's our new address, here's our new phone numbers.
So if ever there was a day that he'd want to find the family, he could. And you were very respectful of your now ex-husband, who kind of wanted to remove himself from all of this.
He didn't want that to come into our lives.
And so at one point, you had told Catholic Charities, please don't contact me.
Right.
So now, 33 years later,
right.
Where
and this happened in 2016, and my mother called me and said, you need to call Catholic Charities. They just reached out to me. And his name was William at the time. We named him William. I forgot to tell you that story, but we named him. And he wants to meet you, and I'm freaking out. Absolutely freaking out. I never thought this would happen. He's now 32 years old. I just wrote it off, and I was okay with it. I'm not going to ever meet this child. And they called me, and I was newly divorced. And they said, you can take your time. You don't have to tell us now how you want to proceed. If you want to proceed, you can just say, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I said, no, bring it on. Bring it on. I had nobody to answer to. This was just just staring me in the face, and we made it happen. And I don't know how many details you want, but we basically spoke by text, and then we called on the phone.
While you were speaking by text, I was on the prowl. I was trying to find any evidence of him. I was like, tell me his name, tell me his name.
So we got his name.
I found him on LinkedIn and found 5 guys with the same name, but they all had pictures, and I go, oh. Now this woman has 4 children with her husband, her ex-husband, who look mostly like him. Maybe a little bit of like our father. But this guy is her doppelganger. So
there was no denying it.
Oh my gosh, Maria, I found him. And it turns out he lived in my neighborhood.
Right.
And so then we started putting things in place and saying, let's make some plans. And the first order of business was to contact the father of the child.
So I contacted the father, and he was like, whoa, because he never told his family. He's married now, and his wife knew and everything.
Yeah.
But he just never told anybody, and I think regrets that a lot.
So we had to tell your family.
So we had to tell my kids. We did. She helped.
I got in a car and I drove 5 hours to her house.
I said, I have to tell my kids now, because we wanted to make this happen really quick, because some of my kids were going off to college.
Things were happening.
It was kind of like, it has to happen now. And so she drove up 6 hours to be with me, to help me, because she lived
she was dying from cancer.
They thought, why is Aunt Cammie here? What the heck is going on? And they were just like, Mom, what is... No, they never could figure it out. They were throwing out things like, whatever, you're getting engaged, boyfriend I was seeing. We're like, no, you're never going to... So they sat down on the couch, and first thing I just said was, 32 years ago, I gave up a baby for adoption, and that's all I said. And they were just like...
And it was 4 completely different reactions.
One was just like they were just kind of...
Like zombies.
One was a zombie, one started bawling, one was just like, yeah, it was crazy. And I said, and one of them said, oh my God, is it our brother? And it's a half brother, but they were worried that it was their dad and me
Oh.
that had this child and didn't keep him.
Right.
And it wasn't. And I said, no, this was from a boyfriend in college. And they're like, okay. So
And within a month, we were down at my house.
yeah, big family reunion.
And we had everybody. So he met you and his biological father.
Who flew out from.
And then at the time was engaged, my nephew, your son. And so then he came to our house to meet your kids, and we were all hiding in my bedroom, my husband and my kids.
So he got
and then
to
we
meet
came
them
out,
all.
and then my parents came, and then the whole family came, and we had little, hello, my name is.
Yes, and
tags.
he is the oldest grandchild of my parents, of 22.
And his family dynamic was this big.
Yeah, he had no other siblings. He didn't feel connected to any of his aunts and uncles.
And his mother
cousins.
had passed away when he was
Yes.
17.
Yes, which was.
So he went from being an only child to having 4 siblings and 21 cousins.
And he literally said, I won the lottery. I won the jackpot.
But I want to end with the moment that we said goodbye to him in our front yard the first time we met him. And I stepped inside, and you went out and you hugged him goodbye. Mm-hmm. And he said 2 things to you, and you came in and you were weeping. Do you remember what those 2 things were?
No, let me think a minute.
He said 2 things to you, and you said, you came in, I don't see her cry very much. Believe it or not, you did not cry a lot during this experience. But that day, you cried, and you just broke down and hugged me. And I said, what happened? What happened? You said, he just told me 2 things I will never ever forget.
Oh, yes.
He said, 1, thank you for keeping me, for not aborting me. And 2, thank you for choosing the family that I have, because I've had a wonderful
parents.
life.
Yep.
And you then said to me, for the first time in 32 years, I don't feel shame. I feel like I did something good.
And I told Mom and Dad, had I known that this all would happen 32 years later, I would have said, here, have him. I just wouldn't have, I wish I could go back, and
But
it was
you
so
can't.
stressful.
You
I know,
can't.
but it was
You
so
can't.
stressful and so shameful. And everyone's like, you did the most amazing thing. Look at, and he came back to us.
And the footnote is that he's still very much a part of your life and our lives.
He has
and
one of my grandchildren.
He's got a grandbaby. They did move away, but we fell in love with him and his wife. And
we see them at least once a year sometimes.
yeah,
right?
it's a beautiful story. And this was only a snippet of.
Yes.
There's so many more dynamics to this, but I think. Well, why don't I ask you? Is there any what is your biggest takeaway? What's the message that, knowing our audience, how do you convey this experience to a 20-year-old in college who's not, maybe in the same position, or maybe worried about finding themselves in this position?
Right.
What would a message?
I guess because I'm older now and wiser than many years ago, I just think that in my brain, I always just feel like automatically they keep the baby or they abort. And maybe that's not true, but I feel like that. And I think, why don't people give a baby up for adoption more often? There are so many parents out there that cannot have children. I only wish I could have been a fly on the wall when that baby was delivered to them, because I just gave them the best gift.
The best gift.
As hard as it is, I can move on and have more children and do it properly. And this child doesn't have to suffer being with a single parent, or
doesn't know what she's
no
doing.
money.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's more about the child, because believe me, I wanted to keep him so badly, just from my own, to keep my little baby. He's my baby.
But you put the child's needs before your own,
right.
And that says a lot about you. And I think that a lot of 20-somethings in this world can't get past their nose to see that. And that's the greatest challenge. And that's what I try and teach these students constantly, is to stop and think about the gift of life you're giving somebody else.
Right. And I feel like I'm a very maternal person, so it was even doubly, because I would have been a great mom to him. Because I was a great mom.
But you are a great mom.
But I am. So I just knew that I could do it. I just went, I just don't want to do this way. I just didn't want to do it.
And I think no one understands that more than he does.
Right. And he never, was never angry that
No.
I did that. He didn't know anything different. That
Every
was his
moment
parents.
from the minute he met you has been a gift. He's never looked back with any kind of regret or resentment. And I think that taught you some lessons.
Yeah.
That you did something right.
Yeah.
So Thank you, Riri. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for
We love
letting
each
me
other.
share my story.
I love you. Thank you for being here.
Too. Thanks for having me.
All right, don't forget to email, ask questions. I don't have Lucy here today to remind you of all my contact information, but thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.